Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Yulia Kan, our Global Mobility Manager at Sobirovs Law Firm. Yulia, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Great. So let's start with a bit of introduction. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Of course. My name is Yulia. As you've introduced, I'm a Global Mobility Manager. So my role at Sobirovs is to bring skilled foreign talent into Canada or to help skilled foreign talent to stay in Canada.
Excellent. How do you help foreign businesses in terms of global mobility?
Right. So when it comes to foreign businesses as well, if the foreign business has an entity in Canada, or let's say they have a project in Canada, they usually identify a very specialized person who needs to come to Canada and help out, whether it be a project or an assignment. And in order to bring them over to Canada, that's where I come and help, where I assist them with the preparation of the documentation and also advise them of how long will it take for the foreign worker to get into Canada so that it helps them with future planning and timeline projections.
Today, let's get the basics, Yulia. What is an LMIA?
Right. So LMIA stands for Labor Market Impact Assessment. So basically what it does, it assesses the Canadian labor market on what kind of impacts it can have by hiring a foreign talent. Because usually when you hire somebody from another country, they bring either a very specialized skill set that's not necessarily available in Canada, or they have a very specific workflows or work ethics, which is also not available in Canada. So what the LMIA does, it will make sure that, first of all, this talent is legitimately in need in Canada, and that by bringing this foreign talent into Canada, it won't necessarily create negative competition with the local Canadians or permanent residents.
So in a way, Canada is trying to protect labor market by forcing foreign workers to go through LMIA process, or is it the employer that goes through LMIA process?
So it would be the Canadian company that would go through the LMIA process. And yes, the Canadian government is very protective of its citizens and its residents. And it just wants to create a very fair ground for everybody. So before the Canadian company can even hire or consider hiring a foreign worker, Canadian government will encourage the Canadian company to look locally first, just to see if there's anyone available. And then, of course, if there's no one available or recruitment shows that the specific talent that Canadian company is looking for is not present, that's when the Canadian company can proceed and apply for the LMIA on the basis that we've done all that we could. We weren't able to find like a very suitable candidate. Therefore, we really need to bring in this foreign worker into Canada.
Let's talk about the process. How long does it take? How much does it cost? And all these monetary and time concerns.
So before we get into that, I think it's important to understand that LMIA, it's kind of like an umbrella. And then underneath, there are different categories of LMIAs as well. So there is an expedited LMIA stream, which is called Global Talent Stream. So under that stream, you can bring a foreign work. LMIA itself can be processed within 2 weeks, whereas every other kind of class usually takes approximately 2 to 3 months. And then to add an advertisement portion on top of that, it will be an additional month or so. So processing time will vary based on the category of the LMIA, which directly depends on what kind of occupation are you looking to fill. And in terms of the pricing, there's a standard government fee on all of them of $1,000. Sometimes you can be exempted. Same thing, it also will depend on the type of the LMIA that you are requesting.
And when you say umbrella, I think the general principle is that if you want to hire a foreigner, non-Canadian, employer must go through LMIA, subject to certain exceptions, right? So one exception is the fast processing of LMIA. Sometimes it's slow, as you said, 3-4 months. Why do you think there are such exceptions or easy pathways on LMIAs?
That's also very, very good question. And I think that really ties in with how slow certain changes can be implemented within such big organizations such as ESDC, Employment Social Development Canada. So for example, the older, more traditional LMIAs, let's say, the ones that have been existing for a while, the components is you do 4-week advertisement, then you submit your LMIA, and it takes about 2 to 3 months to process. But then newer streams, such as Global Talent Stream, for example, that were introduced, I believe, in 2017, because they were a little bit newer, you use more modern technology, you have more staff. That's what was able, the modernity of it was allowed the stream to be a little bit more fast. Also because at the time when Global Talent Stream was launched, there was a really high demand, like federal demand, that all the employers across Canada said, we need these people ASAP.
So you mentioned an organization called Employment and Social Development Canada. What is that organization? Just to get the basics right. It's a federal, provincial, what is it?
Yes, ESDC is a federal organization that processes LMIA applications. It's kind of like IRCC. They do work together, but they are two separate entities.
In a nutshell, do you know, have you calculated how many types of LMIAs out there in the Canadian system?
Yes, so the ESDC website will show you 6 different types of LMIA programs. So there's one for agriculture, caregivers, for professors like academia, and then there's high wage, low wage, which what are called general LMIA, global talent stream, and application to support permanent residence.
Now, what are the primary differences between what you call low wage and high wage LMIAs?
So every single province will have a median wage. So let's say in the province of Ontario, the median wage is $30. I want to hire a foreign worker and I want to pay them $15 because it's below the median wage of the province. Then it will be considered a low wage LMIA. If it's above, then it would be considered a high wage LMIA.
How about that fact that you have to attempt to hire locally to attract Canadian candidates first? But if you give $15 per hour for a position that's usually paid $30 per hour, then Canadians are discouraged from applying that.
So unfortunately, yes, some jobs don't really look attractive to Canadians, and this is why the Canadian companies have the availability to utilize LMIA to hire foreign talent to meet their labor demands.
And the high wage LMIAs?
And for high wage LMIAs, the process is relatively the same. So when it comes to any LMIA applications, we need to look at, first of all, the occupation that you are requesting, and then at the specific median wage of the occupation that is associated, right? So for example, if I want to hire like a senior developer, for example, and the median wage for a senior developer in Ontario is $40 an hour, then this is what I'm going to offer, $40, maybe even more, just to attract and to see whether or not there are any Canadians available for the job.
Okay, but is it somehow related to global talent stream or not? Because software developers are under global talent stream,
right? Yes. Yeah. For global talent stream, it's the same. In any LMIA occupation, you do need to look at the median wage associated with each occupation that you want to hire. And that's kind of what you use as a benchmark of what is an acceptable wage to offer to foreign workers.
Now, let's come to permanent residence. What's the relationship between an LMIA and getting permanent residence through PR programs such as Express Entry?
Well, first of all, when you have an LMIA, it gives you additional points in Express Entry. It doesn't range actually. There's either 50 points or 200 points, and that depends, of course, on the nature of your role within the company. If you are an executive level position, you occupy, like you are a director, then you get assigned 200 points. Anything else, you get 50. So that's the relationship between the LMIA and permanent residency.
What are the main or common challenges that employers face during the LMIA process?
There are so many requirements that ESDC asks for. For example, how you build your advertisement, where do you post your advertisement, for how long, have you completed job match on Job Bank? So these operational administrative items that get overlooked usually are the main reasons behind why the application gets refused. And this is why we are here to help, because we can guide anyone who needs and tell them this is what you need to do at this stage, then this is what you need to do at this stage. So it's mainly the administrative, operational small things that get overlooked in the beginning that usually causes issues like later down the road when the LMIA application is submitted.
What are the main criteria for employers to meet those requirements of LMIA and obtain success?
Well, first of all, the Canadian company needs to be registered, legitimate, operational in Canada, needs to have employees, needs to have revenue. In terms of revenue, it's important to show that the Canadian company has enough money to cover the wage of the foreign worker, right? Because this is what ESDC cares about. So that's the first part on the Canadian company. Then the second part, when it comes to advertisements, make sure that you get the advertisements right. You post on Job Bank, you post on additional 2 to 3 sources, you maintain your advertisements. advertisements. You complete job match. You screen your applicants, screen your resumes. And then when it comes to the actual application form itself, just read the question really, really carefully because sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. And once you finish with an application, give it like one final review, maybe talk to someone who's done it before just to double check what you've done, and then submit the application and wait for the processing and hope for the best.
Great. Well, Yulia, thank you very much for your time today. We covered the basic terminology, the fundamentals of LMIA. When you have time, we will delve into more topics here related to hiring foreign workers. And you should stay updated. Make sure you subscribe to our channels and stay tuned, for more updates. Thank you, Yulia.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Cheers.